Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the 2024 presidential election between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump in a rematch, but we're going to be applying the 2020 polling error on RCP averages. So basically, the 2020 election polling error decides the outcome of this particular video. So for example, if polling averages in the state of Pennsylvania back in 2020 had Biden winning the state by 3%, we would apply a 2% polling error in favor of Donald Trump on the current polling averages of this year's election because Biden only won it by 1%. I want to make that clear. But before we get started with the map, make sure you guys are subscribed and click the bell so you get notified whenever I upload a video instead of missing out on any of them. Also, we have memberships, so if you're interested in that, it's in the description section. You can find the link there. Now back to the topic of today's video. I'm going to be filling out the electoral map based off of this year's current polling averages, and I'm going to be applying the 2020 polling error into the current polling averages out of this month, or the latest ones. So start off with Florida. Back in the 2020 election, RCP averages actually had Biden winning the state by almost 1%, and the final results ended up being Trump won it by 3.3%. So at the end of the day, the polls were off by 4% in favor of Biden. So we're going to be applying this number to the actual number. Current polling averages has Donald Trump winning this state by 14%, which is the latest poll in Florida. So Trump actually wins it by 18% when you apply the 2020 polling error that they missed. So with that being said, Trump is comfortably going to win Florida by a safe margin with double digits in this year's election cycle, according when you apply the polling error from 2020 to the current polls that we're seeing now in 2024. Now, as for Texas, back in the 2020 election, RCP averages had Donald Trump winning this state by roughly 1.3%. When you take a look at the final results, he won it by a little bit over 5%, 5.8%, so actually almost 6%. So they got the state wrong by roughly 4 to 5 percentage points. But the latest poll has Trump up by 9 in this state. So if you were to apply the polling error from 2020, Trump theoretically wins this state by roughly 13%, which is also going to be a safe, comfortable margin just like Florida. He's going to win it by double digits. So those states won't even be competitive when you apply the actual polling error. And then moving on to the state of Minnesota, RCP averages back in the 2020 election had Biden winning this state by 4.3%. So this is actually the opposite of what we just saw in Florida and Texas. RCP averages back in 2020 underestimated Biden's chances in Minnesota. A lot of that support had to do with BLM and the Minneapolis. It shifted and pushed those cities towards the left. Main reason why Biden outperformed these polls. And so we actually won it by 7% at the end of the day. And RCP underestimated Biden by 3 percentage points. So let's apply this to the current polling that we're seeing now in 2024 in Minnesota. So Biden is only up by 2 percentage points as of April 9 in this state. So this state underestimated him by 3% back in 2020. So if you were to apply that polling error, he actually wins this state by roughly 5 percentage points, which is considered a lean margin at the end of the day. So this is the complete opposite of Texas and Florida, in which they underestimated Trump. But meanwhile, as for Minnesota, they underestimated Joe Biden. This video is really interesting. And now, as for the state of North Carolina, averages had Trump barely winning it, basically a tie, by 0.2%. And the final results actually ended up being Trump won it by almost 1.5 percentage points. So with that being said, this state underestimated Donald Trump by exactly 1 point. So with that being said, when you apply the 2020 polling error in the state of North Carolina to the current polls that we're seeing in 2024, as of April 23rd, the latest poll from the state, Trump is winning North Carolina by 10 percentage points. But if you were to factor in these other polls, he's up by 3, a little bit closer, he's up by 8, and then up by 6. So with all these polls, he averages out. Let's just say Donald Trump is up by, I would say, 6 points at the current moment in North Carolina. And then we apply the polling error from 2020. It underestimated Trump in the state by 1 percentage point, so he's actually winning North Carolina by a likely margin of 7 percentage points. So when you apply the polling error of 2020 and you apply that to the 2024 polling averages, Trump is winning North Carolina by a comfortable margin of a likely margin. And then, as for the state of Arizona, this is going to be crucial to a Trump victory in the 2024 election. If Trump loses Arizona, Biden can definitely win re-election. polling averages back in 2020 had Biden winning Arizona by 0.9%. Actually, very close. They were actually pretty accurate. The final results resulted in Biden winning this state by 0.3%. So they were off by 0.6%. So actually, really accurate. But current polling averages in this year's election cycle has Trump winning this state by either 5 or 6%. So when you apply that polling error, they only underestimated Trump by 0.6% at the end of the day. So with that being said, Trump is going to win Arizona by a lean margin of roughly 6% in this year's election cycle. This is a huge win for the Trump campaign. If this is actually what's going to happen on election day, this is not good news for Biden. And then as for the state of Nevada, polling averages back in the 2020 election, according to RCP, had Biden winning the state by 2.5 percentage points, and they actually underestimated him slightly by only 0.3%. He ended up winning it by 2.7. So with that being said, you apply a 0.3 polling error. The latest poll in this state, April 23rd, has Trump winning it by 14%. In my opinion, that is not realistic. So I'm going to say that's an outlier. Let's just ignore that, And then April 2nd, I think this is more accurate. Trump's up by 4. And then March 25th, Trump's up by 6 in the state. So on average, Trump is basically up by 4 to 5% in the state. When you apply the polling averages, Trump is going to win Nevada by a lean margin in 2024. When you apply the 2020 polling error in this state, polls were actually pretty accurate. RCP was only off by 0.3%, very accurate. And if this were the real numbers, according to 2024, Trump's winning this state by a comfortable margin at the end of the day. And then moving on to the deep southern state of Georgia. So averages back in the 2020 election, according to RCP, had Trump winning this state by 1%. And final results, Biden won it by 0.3%. So actually, Georgia polling in RCP in 2020 underestimated Biden. So when you apply this polling error of 1% in favor of Joe Biden, Trump is winning the state currently on average by roughly 6%. So, I mean, if you were to minus that margin down by 1%, which was the 2020 polling error, Trump only wins this state by, not only, it's pretty good, he wins it by 5 percentage points. So with that being said, Georgia is going to flip to Donald Trump by a lean margin. Even when you apply the polling error of 1% in favor of Biden, Trump still handles Biden in this state. And then moving on to the Rust Belt, starting off with Wisconsin. So back in the 2020 election, polls were extremely off in this state. They had Biden winning it by nearly 7%. Final results, he only won it by under percentage point of 0.7%. So at the end of the day, if you apply the polling error of 6% in favor of Donald Trump to the 2024 polls, this state is actually pretty close. You have one poll saying Trump wins it by 3, Biden wins Wisconsin by 2, and then Trump is up by 1 again, and then Biden's up by 3, and then Trump is up by 2. So this race actually keeps going back and forth, but on average, you find a Trump lead of just 1% in this state. So if you were to apply that polling error, Trump actually wins Wisconsin by 6% in the 2024 election. And then moving on to the state neighboring Wisconsin, Michigan, a fellow Rust Belt state. So back in the 2020 election, RCP averages had Biden winning the state by 4%, and they slightly underestimated Trump as Biden only won it by 2.8%. So a pretty good, significant victory in this state. And if Trump is able to flip it in the 2024 election, then Biden is more than likely going to lose re-election. So when you apply a 1.5% polling error to the 2024 polls in this state, Trump's going to win this state by a margin of 3 to 4% when you apply the 2020 polling error in the state of Michigan, which is going to be considered a lean margin. Now, I know the latest poll on RCP has Biden winning Michigan by 3%, but that's not what the majority of polls say. So when you average this out, Trump is actually winning this state by 3 points. See, he's up by 2, he's up by 3, he's up by 2 again. So that's more leads than what Biden is having in this state. And now the last and final state to cover on this video when you apply the polling error from 2020 into the 2024 polls is going to be the Rust Belt state of Pennsylvania. So back in the 2020 election, RCP was literally spot on. They were 100% accurate. So they exactly got the actual margin of what the outcome was. Biden won it by 1.2%. averages on RCP had Biden winning it by exactly 1.2%. So this is extremely spot on. So whatever the 2024 polling averages say, we're going to follow exactly that. Biden is up in the state on average by 0.4%. According to 2024 polling averages, which is extremely close. This kind of is a toss-up, a 50-50 tie for either candidate. I honestly think Biden can win it. It's his home state, obviously. And I honestly can see Trump flipping it again. And so, with that being said, Biden is nearly going to win his home state, Pennsylvania, by a tilt margin by under a percentage point in the 2024 election. So this is the finalized map. When you apply the 2020 polling error to the 2024 polls on RCP averages, Donald Trump wins with 293 electoral votes to Joe Biden's 245, sending him off to retirement. So, yet again, this is not my actual prediction, but this is what the map would look like when you apply the 2020 polling error. So let me know what states you agree with, what states you disagree with in the comment section down below. One last final reminder before I close out this video is to subscribe and click the bell so you get notified whenever I upload a video instead of missing out on any of them. And also, we have memberships, so if you're interested in that, you can click the link in the description section. We have custom perks and custom emojis that you can use whenever you comment on any of my videos. Thank you everyone for watching.